My name is Tamika Minahan, and today I will be talking about the fixed and oversimplified stereotypes created in the minds of the public about Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander people that affect the first impressions and opinions of the majority. To explore this topic, I will be using a clip from a poem written by Indigenous poet Stephen Oliver that mentions the severity of the impact these stereotypes have on the Indigenous community throughout their lives. When it comes to stereotypes, in most cases, they are a negative way of categorizing a group of people together with certain ideals, often starting or being strengthened by the depictions in the media. This is especially true when it comes to stereotypes of Indigenous people in Australia. Such stereotypes impact greatly on such aspects of people's lives as employability, popular opinion, and also the way these people are treated by the general public, by strangers who know nothing about them individually, just the social group they stereotypically belong to due to their external characteristics. These stereotypes play a big part in the discrimination that the Indigenous people of Australia have to live with and face every day of their lives. Beyond Blue in 2014 states that half of non-Indigenous Australians have witnessed acts of discrimination towards Indigenous Australians. The article also states that negative views and stereotypes function as an impediment to reducing discrimination against Indigenous Australians, with such stereotypical opinions as believing Indigenous people are more lazy, believing that Indigenous Australians should behave more like other Australians, and that Indigenous Australians receive unfair advantages by the government. As well as this, 1 in 5 or 20% of people believe it is hard to treat Indigenous people the same as they treat everyone else. As future educators, it is important to be aware of the common stereotypes aimed at Indigenous Australians to ensure they are noticed and removed in the classroom, in order to prevent any racial discrimination in the school environment. The poem You Can't Be Black, performed by Stephen Oliver, brings light to several common stereotypes projected towards Indigenous Australians.
You can't be black. When the media shows Aborigines, they live in communities and struggle with petrol poverty and disease, so you can't be black. See, if you were black, you wouldn't have nice clothes on your back. You'd probably want to try and attack me because of the morality you lack, see, so you can't be black. See, I understand every word that you say. You speak in an educated way, talk about being Prime Minister one day, so you can't be black. You live in the suburbs, have a nice car, have the tidiest yard by far. You sip on a martini in a trendy bar. You go overseas and travel afar. You talk about your law degree, your plan to save humanity. You volunteer with Amnesty, so you can't be black, because don't you see that they're the things I want to be? And when I look at you, I don't see me, though I can't define just what that means, but you can't be black.
Throughout the previous clip, you can see the poet, who is of Indigenous descent, speaking of an encounter with a fellow Australian. During the conversation, it is brought to his attention several different stereotypes that he defies. And then it is stated that because he doesn't fit these stereotypical characteristics of an Indigenous man, he must not be black. Several common stereotypes that are brought up during this poem include poverty, drug abuse, disease, lack of education, and lack of tidiness and cleanliness. During the poem, Oliver discusses that because he defies these stereotypes by having a good job, a law degree, a nice car and clothes, lives in a nice neighbourhood, isn't a drug addict, lazy or untidy, and is well travelled, he can't be black or be a real Indigenous Australian. It is assumed that the second member of the conversation, who isn't Oliver, is a non-Indigenous Australian, when he is depicted to say, "These things are things that I want to be, and when I look at you, I don't see me, though I can't understand what that means, but you can't be black." The last sentence of this clip shows just how close-minded and cut off from logic people can be when taking part in such use of stereotypes. By lumping all Indigenous people together, we are discriminating against them in such a damaging way. Every person is an individual and has their own potential in life and in learning. The emotion that the poet portrays throughout the poem delves into the way that these stereotypes make Indigenous people feel. He speaks a lot slower when he reaches the "you can't be black" parts, to show the lack of belief of the words he is hearing, because he knows these words don't make sense. But also, the tone of voice he uses for the main line of the poem shows just how judgmental and harsh these words feel to Indigenous Australians. Just as anyone who has to fight similar stereotypes in their life feels when they're being slammed with them, especially when talking about things that should be positive. The duration of the poem mentions all the things that are good in the poet's life, but shows how he is made to feel that because he is black, he shouldn't be able to achieve these things in life, and if he does, people are always going to judge him for it. As a future educator, I take from this poem an important message. Do not ever judge anyone, whether it be student, staff member, parent, or anyone else in or out of the school community, based on their outer appearances or the stereotypical group that they may fit into. This sort of discrimination can be very damaging and is placing people into boxes with no evidence. Everyone deserves a fair and even learning experience and to feel welcomed and not judged in a classroom. And it is our jobs as teachers to not only treat our students as equals, but to educate them on how to do the same.